We felt from the beginning that it was more than just a routine missing person.
Coming up on Crime Files.
Sasha Davis and her baby Selah left an 8-year-old daughter behind to go on a trip with a friend. They never returned.
This is the story of a mother, her newborn, and a longtime friend who all vanished without a trace.
My mom is missing. No one had any information.
Where could they be, and why could no one reach them?
It's almost like a cold case.
Until several shocking twists are made more than a decade after their disappearance.
They found an obituary for him, which made us think, well, what happened?
A family looking for clues.
No fingerprint, no blood splatter.
And looking for closure.
Do you know who's responsible?
We have a pretty good idea.
Crime Files starts now.
February 15, 2008, the sun was out, the birds were chirping, and 28-year-old Sasha Davis was taking her 4-month-old baby, Selah, on a day trip to Rochester. Sasha packed her bag, leaving her 8-year-old daughter behind, rented a car with her friend Griff, and off they drove upstate. Days went by without Sasha checking in on her daughter. The family tells us they knew something was terribly wrong. That was a month ago. They never came back.
Anybody seen Sasha and her baby, please? I'm asking you guys, please. We miss her. We can't sleep at night. Please, if you kill her, just bring her back so we could have some peace and closure. It hurts every night when we go to sleep.
We want to know if Sasha alive, she dead. We just want to know something. We just want a closure. We just want to go.
Please, Sasha, come home.
It was Valentine's weekend in February of 2008. Sasha Davis told her family and friends that she was taking a quick trip with a longtime childhood friend. Her 4-month-old daughter, Selah, went with her. They never returned home.
As I recall, she said she was going to Jersey with one of her other friends, Griff.
Jarib Bennett, who was also nicknamed Griff, had been friends with Sasha since high school. They had both grown up on the island of Jamaica and then emigrated to the U.S. Sasha settled in New York City, raising her 2 daughters. Griff moved to New Jersey.
You know, he had a crush on Sasha from high school. He would come by the store sometimes to say hi to Sasha.
That store is the Golden Touch Salon in the Bronx, owned by Sasha's Aunt Gwenny. It was the last place family and friends ever saw the mother and her baby alive.
The night she left, we went to the shop and she asked if I wanted to stay with my aunt or go with her. At the time, I wanted to stay with my aunt. She always made me do the stuff that my mom wouldn't let me do.
But Shania, Sasha's oldest daughter, didn't have the weekend of fun that she expected. She got sick, so her great aunt Gwenny naturally tried to get a hold of Sasha.
I keep calling her. When she answers me, she just keeps saying, like, yes, like one word, and that's not her. So I was kind of concerned.
That wasn't the only concerning phone call. Sasha also reached out to her friend Soyeni while she was away, and she told her she was having some second thoughts about continuing on the trip, but didn't share why.
I said to her, well, follow your mind. Go with your instinct, that sixth sense. So I was trying to help her to get out of it. I called her, I spoke to her the next day, and everything was going good. She said that she'll be back around 3 or around 6. The evening time, I didn't hear from her. So I called her and I didn't get her. It became more and more concerning to the point where we started calling and the phone was off. So of course, it kind of freaked everyone out.
After a few days, there was no word from my mom, and then I remember being told my mom is missing.
Panicked and worried, Sasha's loved ones started reaching out to Griff's family and friends in New Jersey, trying to learn more about this trip.
They kind of provided some clarity on, where they headed.
And we found out the trio made a trip to Rochester in upstate New York, 350 miles away. Local police there became involved in the search.
A detective in New York City called and asked for help trying to find these people. They left New York City about February 15th, came to Rochester The last time that we knew they were using their cell phones was on February 19th. They had come to Rochester in a rental car. Investigators went out and they actually located themselves the rental car parked here in Rochester.
But Sasha, Selah, and Jarib were nowhere to be found.
Of course, that was scary that they found the vehicle and not them. The cops said there was no fingerprint. They said there were no blood splatter, which was good news to us. We're still hopeful.
The car hadn't been driven in a few days. I believe there was a stroller and some other items for the baby in the car, but there's also things missing that we were able to later locate at area pawn shop. Could be they just went off to an island someplace and started a new life, but as a police officer, you're probably going to think that something more sinister happened.
No one who knew Sasha could comprehend why she would just disappear. She left working as a nursing assistant and being a mom to her 2 girls, and they say she wouldn't abandon either of them. The family wanted answers.
Sasha's family closed the salon and took matters into their own hands. On a dark, cold Friday morning at 1 a.m., 20 people piled into vans and drove upstate to look for some answers.
They were very helpful in providing information as far as phone numbers, acquaintances that they knew maybe from Rochester.
We went around the community, we gave out flyers.
The family says they're on a mission from God, a mission that could possibly save 2 lives.
Please help us. If you've seen them, heard from them, help us. Call 911, call someone.
Tired, yet hopeful, they hit the streets in search of the people they love.
There's a $10,000 award. Please help us.
They would not stop until the hundreds of flyers and processed t-shirts were given out.
As long as it takes us to give out these 300 flyers, that's what we're gonna do.
Along streets, in stores, on car windows, it simply did not end.
Bring them home!
It was just like tight-lipped, or like no one had any information, so it was kind of frustrating.
The families left Rochester with no answers and without any leads on where Sasha and Selah could be. They returned to New York City, fearing the worst.
From the outside looking in, you can't understand it. From the inside looking out, they can't explain it. But they know what hope means, and right now, hope is what's keeping the family going. Hanging by a thread on a wall inside this tiny Bronx command post is a small piece of paper that Aunt Gwenny says is the only reason she is able to close her eyes.
May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back.
There's nowhere she went that I wasn't with her.
May the sun shine warm upon your face.
Always together, basically, like never left her side.
May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand.
She was a very good friend to me and to all our friends, very supportive and loving.
She's my heart. Her mom leave her with me like about 9. I always keep her as my daughter. She was my bestie. Selah was so pretty. She had this ear like cabbage patch, and she was fat. So I always love to hold her.
She was bubbly, happy, very happy baby. She was very young at the time when this happened, just a few months old. So that was kind of hard and unbelievable.
Nearly 15 years went by without any word from Sasha, Selah, or Jarib Bennett, and there was no new information about where they could be. Then, in 2022, police decided to take another look at things, and they got a bit of a break in the case.
There was another twist at that time.
As investigators dug deeper into Jarib Bennett, they uncovered a complicated past.
Still ahead.
New and shocking details emerge about who Sasha and Selah Davis were really traveling with on that road trip.
They found an obituary for him that he died in 2017.
They called me the priest and they said he's dead, Griff.
But things aren't really as they seem.
What happened to Sasha? What happened to the baby?
Plus, investigators learn more about why the trio took that trip and then vanished.
When Crime Files continues. Crime Files continues now with Vanished, Sasha and Selah.
The search was on for 30-year-old Sasha Davis, her 4-month-old daughter Selah, and longtime friend Jarib Bennett, who everyone called Griff. After their rental car was found abandoned in Rochester, New York, family and investigators only grew more concerned.
We want to see if we can get any help for Sasha, my niece, because we are not getting any answer, we are not getting anywhere. Tomorrow is her birthday and she's not even here. We are so concerned. So that is the reason why we are here, to put out more flyers, ask the citizens if they can help us in finding them or if they hear anything.
We felt from the beginning, fairly early on, that it was more than just a routine missing person.
I know for sure she wouldn't stay away from us that long.
I don't like to speculate, but we know it's definitely not good. Sasha would never, ever leave Shania. Definitely not willfully.
It's something that weighs on our whole family, just to know there's a part of us that's just out here alone.
Despite the family's best efforts to find them, the case went cold for nearly 15 years. But then authorities decided to take another look.
In 2022, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children asked us if they could come in and also review the case. They had an open investigation on Sasha Davis, who would now be a 15-year-old. They still actively followed up, they actively followed tips.
And they discovered something shocking.
Jarib Bennett, they found an obituary for him that he died in 2017, which made us think, well, what happened? What happened to Sasha? What happened to the baby?
They called me, the precinct. They wanted to know if I'm aware that he's dead, Griff. I was confused. I was like, what? So I was like, where they found him? So when they showed me the picture, I was like, no, that's not Griff.
This all played out like the plot of a Hollywood movie. Jarib Bennett did die in 2017, but the man who was traveling with Sasha and Selah, who everyone called Griff, was not actually Jarib Bennett. Investigators say the truth was that Griff took on Jarib Bennett's identity when he arrived in the U.S.
The male who was missing, who came here to Rochester with Sasha Davis and her baby, was actually an individual who was here illegally from Jamaica and somehow was able to get a hold of Mr. Bennett's information and was able to get other ID and assumed his identity and lived in the United States as Jarib Bennett.
To Soyeni, he'd always just been Griff, ever since high school back in Jamaica, and they'd always been on a first-name basis.
So then I kind of understood that he had assumed another name.
We actually talked to a person in New York City who was able to explain how the missing person had assumed that identity and gave us the real name that they knew him by. We have a name on him now, but I don't even know if that's the right name. It was that name he assumed before. He assumed this name and he had some legal trouble with that one, so that's why he needed to use another name. We know that he was here from Jamaica. We really have no way to say exactly who he was.
It's still unclear to this day why Griff was using another person's identity, but investigators do question whether it had something to do with his road trip to Rochester, because they found out he traveled there for a reason.
Through the investigation, we had information that the male missing person was here to sell marijuana. The amount of drugs and the amount of money involved were said to be substantial. Him being here from out of town and with a large amount of money, a large amount of drugs, involved with associates here who would be involved in drugs and potentially violence, led us to believe that this certainly could be some type of crime involved in this. Sasha Davis and her baby were, as far as we know, never involved in any of the activity, but were along for the ride with him.
Did you ever hear, kind of through the grapevine, that he was perhaps involved in selling drugs, specifically marijuana?
No.
Not until they went missing.
When police first realized that this could be a high-stakes drug deal gone wrong, they had worked the case from all angles.
There was a lot of investigation by both the homicide unit, narcotics unit, wiretaps, surveillance. We had information that they were taken to Buffalo and never came back. That angle was looked at. During surveillance, we followed people back and forth to Atlanta, either electronically or with physical surveillance. Things that we did recover, the car, the items from the pawn shop, other things that we recovered in search warrants, they were circumstantial evidence that something may have occurred, but they weren't that smoking gun. There wasn't blood, there wasn't victims' clothing, things like that that would say, oh yeah, this is what happened. Theories were developed that may or may not be really what happened. I mean, just because I think it happened, you can't prove it happened.
It was just sad, and I just was wondering where she went, if anybody hurt her. She was so tiny, so I was kind of scared myself for somebody to really hurt her and the baby.
With still no answers, detectives went back through their notes from 2008 when Sasha and Selah were last seen alive. And that's when they made another discovery.
We went through all our suspects from the time. We noticed that one of our potential suspects' girlfriend had a child who was born the same month as Sasha Davis. If there was a murder, would they murder the baby? Or is that baby still alive now someplace under a different name, under a different family?
Still ahead. Is it a coincidence or a true connection to the case?
How could that be possible? How could we have someone we're looking at and has a child the exact same age as our missing person?
Do you think there's any chance that they're alive?
And for the first time, investigators set the record straight and share their theory.
What do you think happened to Sasha and Selah Davis?
When Crime Files continues. Crime Files continues now with Vanished, Sasha and Selah.
Almost 15 years after Sasha, Selah, and Griff disappeared, investigators got together in Rochester and looked into all of the evidence. After all of that time, they came across several new developments, one of which gave them some hope.
We noticed that one of our potential suspects' girlfriend had a child who was born the same month as Sasha Davis. So it made us, of course, think right away, wait a minute, how could that be possible? How could we have someone we're looking at and has a child the exact same age as our missing person? But we found her birth certificate, we found who the mom was. We were able to say that the mom was pregnant before that. We were able to substantiate all of these things. We were make sure it wasn't a fake birth certificate or anything like that. So it was a weird twist, but it ended up being unrelated and just coincidental. We went over hundreds of documents, surveillance notes and search warrants and wiretaps, and there was really nothing new that came up. There was nothing that we obviously missed.
While investigators say they need more evidence, they do have a theory. And when we spoke with Rochester police, they shared it with us for the very first time. What do you think happened to Sasha and Selah Davis?
It's likely that they came here so the male could sell marijuana and collect money from previous sales up here. It's likely that people knew he was coming and he was somehow set up to be robbed. I think the missing person was probably the victim of a homicide, probably in Western New York, either in Rochester or Buffalo. And then Sasha Davis and her baby, it's certainly the possibility that they were also victims. They may have just been with him in the wrong place, wrong time.
If we're assuming that something did happen to them and it could have been a homicide, do you know who's responsible?
We have a pretty good idea. There were other spin-off arrests made because of this investigation, but no arrests were made specifically for any crime committed against any of those three missing people.
What do you need as an investigator to solve this case?
If there was a murder, to find the remains of the victims. The thing that proves a homicide is a dead body. In this case, there were no dead individuals, there were no bodies, there was nothing recovered. This is still an open case and we're still investigating it.
What will it take to bring you closure?
If she died, where she's at, to put in her grave so we can at least go there, cry, At least that would give me a closure.
I don't ever want them to think like we gave up on them or that she gave up on me or something like that, but it's just, I would just like to know, like, if my mom is not here with me anymore, I would like to have her near me. I could visit her, talk to her.
Despite her mother's physical absence, Shania is still following in her footsteps and pursuing a career in the same field, caring for others, just like her mom did.
Going to nursing school is kind of, in a way, to honor her. It's a way to carry on what she started, since she couldn't finish it, go to nursing school herself.
You kind of feel a sense of guilt. You're always constantly thinking about her, thinking about what could have happened, what she went through. We definitely want to bring her home and for her to know that we never gave up.